Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here today for another this and that video. And if you're new, what these videos are just basically a weekly potpourri type video where I talk about the many things going on around here, give you updates on projects I've started, things I'm working on, to direct you back to older videos I may already have, or let you know of videos that are yet to come. So let's get to the topics of today because I have quite a bit to talk about. So first, let me go ahead and start off with the blueberry currant. I think last week's this and that video I mentioned thawing out some of my older blueberries and currants to turn into jam. Well, I didn't end up cooking it down far enough, so it's not exactly jam. It's somewhere in between jam and syrup, but that's okay because we actually use syrup more than we do jam by far. But the taste is awesome. I've actually never made blueberry jam. I usually save my blueberries for other things, but I figured with the currants as well, it would make a really nice flavor, and I love how it turned out. So good. But if you're interested in how I make jams without using any pectin and a much lower sugar content, I'll link to a couple of different videos I've done over the years. One was making blackberry jam, and another one was where I made salmonberry and rhubarb jam. I stopped using pectin years ago, and it's really just a matter of cooking it down just the old-fashioned way. You just keep cooking it down until it thickens up, and you can actually do it without any added sugar whatsoever. Now let me talk a little bit about the rhubarb wine. In last week's video, I was talking about getting some rhubarb wine started. Well, I managed to get 2 going. Here's what it looked like when I started it. This is the very first day. And here's what it looks like now. This is the color it turned after about 3 days. So through that period of time, from day 1, you could see it getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and then it stopped at this color. Now the same thing happened with my grape wine, with my own grapes. The wine starts off looking kind of ugly at first, kind of almost an olive green, which I love the color olive green, but it's not very pretty in a wine. And after about 7 days, it turned a nice bright golden color. And it's funny how some things do that. Now, not all wines will do that. Some of them will stay pretty much the same color. And I just find it interesting how some will change. But sometimes towards the end of the process, they'll get darker again, but usually stay a nicer looking color. These have been going for about a week now, and we'll see in about another 3 weeks. I'm going to be adding the sugar here in a couple days, adding a little bit more sugar to it. And here's a little hint on that. I do have a series on the winemaking, by the way, I'll link to down below if you're interested, but I don't remember what I said in that first video. Sometimes I will add the extra sugar directly into the jug right about the 1 week mark. That's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it, and I know I said this in a video before, is to take out maybe a couple of cups to a quart of the wine, put it in another receptacle, add your cup of sugar to that, mix it in well, and then slowly add it back in. Because here's what can happen if you add the sugar directly to the jug. I've made this mistake a couple of times. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But when it's really active, it can actually cause a pretty explosive reaction, and that will start shooting up, and then you can lose a lot that way. But anyway, those are very active, and they've been just coming along real great, and so I'm really curious, since this is the first time I've made rhubarb wine at all. I've made rhubarb flavored mead before, but I've never made wine just from rhubarb juice that I juiced myself. And yes, I'll be doing a video on that, and I did use my apple press to do that with the frozen rhubarb. Freezing it first makes a huge difference, and they were actually much easier to juice than the fresh apples when I did that a couple years ago. So, but anyway, I will be doing a whole video just on that down the road. So moving on. Now this one, because the day that I'm shooting this video is the day that the vanilla bean, what to do with your expended vanilla beans video just came out. And so people were asking me about where I got my vanilla beans, which I didn't even think to mention in there. Well, part of the reason why is because where I get them has changed over the years. This is one of my older jars. This is 2015. So that's why it's so sparse, because it's the one I've been working out of. And at the time when I was stocking up on these, I was getting them for the organic vanilla beans from Frontier Co-op on Amazon. And I was getting, I think I was getting them through Subscribe and Save. I don't remember for certain. But at the time I was paying just under $30 for 4 ounces or a quarter pound of vanilla beans, which I thought was a lot back then, but it was a better price than what I was finding other places. Now those same vanilla beans, last I looked, they had gone up to 120, and somebody said that they're even more than that now, like over $300 for the same amount for the same brand. And when I went to stock up again, I had to switch to some other brands. I found some on eBay, I got those, and then for a while I was getting some other ones on Amazon that they're okay. They'll work just fine. Now, I don't like them as well as the Frontier Co-op, but I don't even know if the ones that I stocked this jar up with, which I was thinking I started in 2019, but I dated it 2020. It's at least a year and a half old though. I can't guarantee where it's going to be the best place to find it. I could give you a link, but that could all change. The price of vanilla has been doing this a lot, and it has I've yet to see it go back down to where it was when I was initially stocking up on the vanilla bean. But you can get a few vanilla beans and they can go a long way if you just know how to use them. I didn't fill all this up in one shot. It was a little bit at a time, which was the same I did with the other jars, just a little bit at a time until I got a full jar. Vacuum sealed it into the jar so it keeps them as fresh as possible, and they've been great that way. Now let me go ahead and move on to talking about potatoes. So I did start harvesting my potatoes. There's still a lot more to go. I have so far filled up a pretty good sized box, one of those Misfits Market box, one of their bigger boxes. And right here in this basket, these are the ones I've set aside to be seed potatoes. And these little tiny ones, I may try canning some of them, but I'm going to wait until I have other things to can, because I don't like running my big old canner out there on the propane unless I can fill it up. So I might wait until I start canning the green beans and then do a couple of maybe just pint jars of these to see what we think, and pull out maybe some of my turkey broth and put that in there and can them with that. I think that will be really good. But what I did do the other night with some of them, I have these cute little tiny crock pots or miniature Dutch ovens or whatever you want to call them, that they were made in Spain, but I found them at a garage sale. You could tell they'd never been used. 50 cents a piece. Love these things. I use them a lot. They're the perfect size for baking things for just 1 or 2 people. And so I filled the pot up with a bunch of these little potatoes, put in some butter, some onions and garlic, and then just stuck them after, of course, I scrubbed them up really good. And then just put them in the solar oven and let them bake all day, and boy, they were really good. So I might do more of that, but I still think I'm going to at least experiment canning maybe a couple of pints with the turkey broth. And then the rest of my potatoes, all the bigger ones, you can see I'll show you a picture here. This is the way for the past couple of years I've been preserving my potatoes to get us through the year, and that is putting them in a cardboard box in layers and layering straw or hay in between each layer, trying to keep them as spread out as possible. It's when your potatoes are packed together that they're going to be more apt to rot. So if you can keep them spread out and keep airflow in there, that's why the layers of straw, it helps keep air circulating through there. That's what's going to prevent rot. And then I keep them back in the pantry where it's the coldest room in the house. And then with that, every time, once I dig up my potatoes, I usually go right to work at transplanting the amaranth. I have started in a pot somewhere else. It's at just the right point for me to start taking those amaranth plants and start filling in the gaps where I had the potatoes. And the purpose for that is I can reuse that space right away, because the potatoes are always one of the first things you harvest, and then I can put the amaranth in there. The amaranth is going to help feed back into the soil some nutrients, as well as provide those beautiful flowers, those very nutritious leaves that you can dry up and add to your mixed greens blend, or are really good in salads, or of course the seeds themselves that you can use as a grain, whether it be you mix in with your other grains that you're grinding for bread, or use in a cereal, or whatever it is you want to do. Mostly what I do with the seeds is I just turn around, save some for replanting, and then put the rest up on my store. So I do sell the amaranth seeds. So my amaranth is the Love Lies Bleeding, and that's where you get that nice beautiful red color. And I love it. I love the color it adds to the garden, and it fills in that open spot for a while that's always right behind my zucchini plants. With that in mind, the zucchini, I have 3 zucchini plants out front. I originally started with 6, but the ones I put in the back garden ended up all dying on me. They don't like it back there for some reason. They love it in the front, and I know part of that is because it's the south facing side, so they always do the best in the front. But out of the 3 that are out there, 2 of them are Black Beauty, which is what I was supposed to be planting, but one of them is clearly not. I believe it's the, I'll put the name here. It starts with an S. It's an Italian zucchini. I've grown it before, but I cannot remember the name. It's a very tasty zucchini, and it's that beautiful striped one, and I think that's what it is. So in one of those packs of seed that I got from Etsy, one of them ended up being that, and even though I loved that zucchini, I never grew it again because it just didn't produce as well as the Black Beauty. But I'm glad to see I've got it again, because I've been wanting to try it again and see how well it does out here out front. And already I got 2 zucchini growing on there that look like they're pretty healthy. So we'll see. The plants are still growing. They'll get much bigger than that. But now that leads me to my next topic. So some of you remember I've been talking about growing Arnica back here, right in front of my greenhouse. And the first one bloomed. I was surprised because the flower didn't look like I expected it to look. I expected the petals to be a lot thinner and a lot more of them, and I didn't expect the flower to look quite so big. Well, somebody came in and said, that looks like Coreopsis to me. And I got to looking up, I'm like, yeah, they do look pretty similar, don't they? But I was still thinking, oh, I'm pretty sure this is Arnica. That's the seed I bought. Well, as I did a little more research and really started looking into it and watching the plants as they grow, because that was my other thing, is the plants have been getting taller than what they were supposed to get, which is the reason I planted that right in front of the greenhouse. I didn't want tall plants there. And then the other thing that clued me in that this is not Arnica was when I started drying up the flowers. And I could tell right away that the flowers look nothing like the Arnica flowers I've purchased, the dried ones. So this is actually my newest bag right here. I figured since I'm not growing Arnica like I thought I was, I better buy some more. I did do some more research and realized that somehow I ended up with a pack of Coreopsis, not a pack of Arnica seeds, which was disappointing on one hand, but they are beautiful, and that spurred me to do some research into Coreopsis to find out, does it have any health benefits? And come to find out, yes it does. And I'll be doing a video just on that where I do a herb profile about the Coreopsis, and I'll be taking the seeds I collect from it this year. I decided I'm not going to dry any more flowers. I'm going to try using these flowers for something that I'll talk about later on in that video. But the rest of them I'm going to save for seeds so I can sell the seeds on the store for those who are interested, because it is a beautiful flower and it does have uses that, especially, I'll throw this one out there, especially if you're diabetic, you may really appreciate that one, and you might want to get some seeds because this can be very helpful at controlling your blood sugar levels as well as blood pressure and cholesterol and much more. So there's just a teaser about what's to come. So now flow into the next topic, to the Arnica. Now, if those of you might have seen my recent community post, I put up, I think it was Wednesday, and I had twisted my ankle, and some people didn't see my whole post. And let me just clarify something. I'm 55 years old at the time that I'm shooting this video. I have spent my whole lifetime, from the time I was 5, being active, doing something, and most of that activity growing up was ballet classes and being in musicals and doing other forms of dance, then teaching dance, then taking martial arts, and then teaching martial arts. So I am very accustomed to having sprains, strains, and tears of all kinds, from my fingers to my wrists to my ankles, and tears in the muscles, which would be pulled muscles, in my hamstrings, in my quadriceps, and in my adductor muscles. So I'm very accustomed to having to deal with such things. And in that post I had put a link, which initially somehow the link ended up missing some part of the URL. So I did fix it, but I'll go ahead and put the link again down below in the description box from a couple of years ago where I broke a toe and how I helped speed up the healing with a special soak. Well, I used that same soak again for my foot. It wasn't actually my ankle that I sprained, it was my foot. It was my ankle that I folded over, but it was the foot that I injured. So it's the part of the foot that starts from just the outside of the arch and goes under the foot like that. And I ended up with a huge lump on my sole for a couple of days that was very sore and very hard to walk on. In fact, that first night I was just having to crawl from room to room because it was all I could do. And I didn't have any crutches to help me out. So, and Patrick did help, but he kept saying, "Can I get you something?" And I'm like, "No, I'll get it myself," because that's how independent I am. One of the ingredients in that soap was Arnica flowers, as well as my own homegrown fresh comfrey. And then the other thing that I used even more so has been my homemade joint and muscle rub. Because of the ingredients used in here, this is also great for helping to heal tears, sprains, and so on. And so this has really helped. As you can see, I'm standing here just fine, and I'm standing on both feet, and it's really only been a few days. I've been amazed at how quickly I have recovered, because I've had some mild to very, very bad sprains that didn't heal in near this amount of time. So I'm going to be shooting, hopefully today, which will probably be 3 to 4 weeks before you see it, a video just on how to heal sprains and things like that, and talking about also why the RICE method, which is rest, ice, compression, and elevation, is not always best. In fact, it's probably more rare that's going to be best than the methods I use to help heal my sprains. This has also been my learning from years of experience. And again, I'll give you another teaser. Think of your body's natural reaction to any kind of stress. If it's a tear or a sprain or a break or something like that, what happens? It swells. Your body was created to do that for a reason. So why are we trying to take down the swelling when it's necessary for the healing process? It's the first step in the healing process. Yes, there are times where the body overreacts, and there's times that swelling needs to be taken down, but for the most part, no. Same thing applies to fevers. The last time I had the flu was quite a number of years ago, which, by the way, I caught from someone, a whole family of people. I don't know which one, because they'd all been taking either dance or martial arts classes from me that had all had the jab for the flu that year. They all got sick and passed it on to me. And that was the last time I ever had it. And I let my fever run its course. And I was better in a much quicker time than anyone else who got the flu that year, because I didn't try to dumb down my body's natural process. Yeah, it was tough, but it really only lasted, I don't know, maybe not even a full day, 12 hours tops. I don't remember. It was quite a number of years ago. But the next day, I could not believe how much better I felt, because I allowed it to run its course as it should have done. But again, I'll throw this out here. There are certain times where the body can go into overdrive and your fever can get too high, and then it does need to be brought down. But we shouldn't be jumping right to, oh, I gotta get rid of this fever, I gotta get rid of this swelling, because our bodies were created intelligent to respond to these things to help speed up healing, or to get rid of viruses within our body, to kill them off. That's one of the reasons why we have a fever, plus sweating out toxins. Well, that's the end of the things that kind of lead into each other, but I do have a couple more things I want to talk about. Mother Earth Products is starting to finally build up their organic products again. They have dehydrated and freeze-dried products. A lot of the things that I don't either grow really well or at all, or that I prefer to have freeze-dried, I will go ahead and get from Mother Earth Products. And one of these days I'll talk more about why I still don't have a freeze dryer and why I probably will never get one. But if you're interested in more information, where I did the comparisons between different types of food preservation, the pros and cons of each, I will link to that down below. And I do talk about, dehydrating has benefits that freeze drying does not, and vice versa. And same thing with canning, freezing, and so on. Anyway, so I was really glad to see they had the organic freeze-dried bananas. Now, here's one of my favorite things to do with freeze-dried fruits, is to powder them up and to use for flavoring for making various things. Such as, I have a video where I made a raspberry cream pie using the freeze-dried raspberries and powdering them up. I also have another video I did on raspberry rolls, which were made very similar to your cinnamon rolls, except without the cinnamon, and making a raspberry icing to put over the top. And I will link to that video down below as well. And so yesterday I did experiment making some, because I want to get back into making banana cream pie. And I haven't done it since I got myself away from the cheap, easy, and unnatural way of doing it many years ago. And that used to be I'd make the crust from scratch, but then I would make the filling from instant pudding. I stopped doing that many years ago because of all the junk in that. And also because of just trying to go more natural and come up with my own recipes. And so yesterday I experimented with the bananas, powdering them up, and made a little bowl of banana pudding, which I've only taken a taste of, and it tastes delicious. And I cooked it up the same way I would for making chocolate cream pie, which I have a video recipe on that too, or the raspberry cream pie, or any other type of cream pie that I'm gonna make. And it did turn out really good. So the next time I do this, I'm going to actually make a full banana cream pie using the freeze-dried bananas, but you can do that with any freeze-dried fruits, whether it be pineapple, mango, raspberry, strawberry, whatever it is. And it's a good way, an easy way to make a cream pie and get that flavor, and you can add in as much of that powdered fruit as you want to get as much flavor as you want. So the one thing about the banana I found was that my ratio of banana powder, or the fruit powder, which I would compare to adding to the amount of cocoa I would add to the chocolate cream pie, I'm going to increase that to get a stronger banana flavor. But other than that, it still turned out really good. And I also used powdered milk and powdered heavy cream for making that filling instead of using fresh milk. So that at least flows into this one. I stocked up on powdered milks for years, but I've really been upping my game on the powdered dairy products. Hoosier Hills and Judy's are two of my favorite powdered dairy products, and it will just depend on which one has the best price at the time. One thing I do like about Judy's is that it comes in a Mylar bag that I would feel safer keeping stored into for long term. And I haven't opened this one yet, but I know Judy's makes an excellent whole powdered milk without the antibiotics and the hormones. And when I realized that I couldn't get the Hoosier Hill whole powdered milk anymore on the Subscribe and Save, I thought, well, I'm not done. I have a bucket I'm filling up that's gonna go into our long-term storage, a 5-gallon bucket. And I found that Judy's now has the 5-pound bag for an even better price, and available on Subscribe and Save, which means you can save even more. And so this is an excellent one. So with that in mind, I will go ahead and link down below to the last video I did on dairy products for long-term storage, because I have many different ways of storing up things for making milk, whether it be vegan milk or actual dairy milk. And I don't just store it in powdered forms, but in liquid forms as well. So I'll link to that video. But I want to add one more thing to this, and that is, the more I've been using these powdered milks, the more I've been very pleased with them. And the great thing about having this on hand, because we don't get to the store very often, especially to Costco, which is where I best like to stock up on fresh organic milk in the cartons, because those freeze much better, thaw out quicker than your gallons, and they're not in plastic. So in between, and I like to save the fresh milk for Patrick to use on his cereals and that kind of thing. But everything else now, everything else I do, from sauces to gravies to even the cream pies now, and that pudding that I made, I'm using powdered milk. Now, a lot of times I'll supplement it with the heavy cream powder to make a richer flavor, like you would want for fettuccine. Because the other night I made some chicken fettuccine, and I used the combination of the whole milk powder and the Hoosier Hill heavy cream powder, and it's excellent. I never liked to drink milk at all when I was a kid, and especially hated powdered milk back then. Well, part of that was because all the powdered milk we ever got was a non-fat kind, and it was gross. But you can get a healthy whole milk powder with no other ingredients added, such as this. All that's in here is whole powdered milk. No stabilizers, no added junk to it. And so you can do that. Now, I said this in that milk video, but I'm going to say it again. There's a certain popular brand out there that people like the flavor, but I think people aren't paying attention to the ingredients. And the ones with the worst ingredients, like corn syrup, and so on are the ones that are tailored specifically for kids. So please read the ingredients. It doesn't make sense to strip all the fat out of the milk, then to add unhealthy fats back into the powdered milk to then increase the fat ratio. That just doesn't make sense. Why not just go with the simple whole milk powder? It's going to be healthier for you anyway. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed my this and that for this week. Don't forget to check out the videos down below. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.